Ladies and gentlemen, that was Off Fleek. Very powerful film. We are lucky to have Stephen Dorrington with us, who's the director and I believe the writer. He's a multi-award winning director and writer here in the UK. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to your screen, Stephen Dorrington. Here he goes. There he is. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for screening my film.
Thank you for doing that to us. We love it. Wonderful. So straight into it. First of all, so obviously this is a film about the very specific details of a teenage girl being cyberbullied, and we're very much tracking her suffering in an unapologetic way. So just tell me what triggered you to write this film.
So I teach sort of children of this age, and I think one thing that is very different between the generations is social media being around when they're growing up. So it's a constant. People my age, it came in maybe sort of late teens. So it's a tool and we use it, and some people use it more than others. But for any child that grows up with it, it is as important as everything else in their lives. It's an absolute key element of their lives. And I think one issue we have is the parents and people my age know what bullying is, but they think it's like things that happen in the playground and stuff like that. So when it comes to cyberbullying, because they don't understand social media, they don't understand cyberbullying. And often what happens is, unlike, say, traditional bullying, these children don't talk about it, don't know how to talk about it, because their parents don't understand them when they do talk about it. So it becomes a very private thing. It's also, it doesn't leave scars. You don't get beaten up. You don't get a black eye. You don't come home and your parents say, "Oh, what happened to you?"
Yeah.
You just come home and you're mentally scarred. So the idea behind it, and obviously it's quite graphic, but is to visualize that pain and those scars, and show what's happening in that person's mind, and try and get that across to an audience that possibly doesn't understand it in the same way a teenager or a child would.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's added a whole new dimension in my mind, because I didn't even think of the side of the parents not getting, because obviously I knew they'd misinterpret the phone going off and everything, but yeah, that intrinsically they don't understand how that could work. It's like, yeah, I don't get how to use Facebook. I also don't understand how Facebook can ruin your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't mean it means nowhere near as much to them as it does to a child.
Yeah,
it's considered just like another website, but really all those things, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those things are. And it's hard to explain how important they are, because we don't really understand it, but they are massive.
yeah.
It's a huge part of their life. Yeah.
Yeah, I always think that I'm not to give the game away. I'm 40, and I always think that this generation sort of what do they call I don't know what we're called, but anyway, Zoomers or whatever. Is social media comes along at an interesting time, because it is like you're already adults and all this, but so when people like my age or our age or whatever take it seriously, you're sort of like, it's even weirder, because you're like, better,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know what life was like before. You've had your ass kicked, all that. And so quickly tell me, have your students seen the film?
No, they haven't. Like it's difficult because the students change all the time. So yeah, and I'm just not allowed to show it to them.
No.
I just can't show it to them.
Well played.
Like, some people, there's some people have been to festivals and seen the film and then decided, right, I'll show this to my 14-year-old or whatever. But that's their choice. And there has been it's been to some film festivals, and then schools have asked to show it to some of their older students. But yeah, it hasn't really got that type of audience. I don't really think it is for. It's not for children though. It's children understand it. I think they understand what it means. It is for an older audience that doesn't understand what the child's going through.
Yes.
The audience it is for an adult audience. It's not for a child audience.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say, I would imagine it's more, it's more eye opening for, because the kids already know this
Exactly.
stuff exists. I'm gonna bring up Arafili, who's got some more questions for you. Arafili, monsieur.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Hello.
So we have a lot of comments for this film. San Juan Tae says it's holy shit. That was amazing. Stelios Cook says, well done, Stephen. Nice dark take on cyberbullying. James says, it feels like a shock therapy and all the better for it.
Shock therapy. That's a good way to think about it.
And Sandy Ban says, it's a nice story and portrait of the present situation. So what I would like to ask, I'm not going to ask you if your intention was to challenge us, because you'll take this sneaky smile. I'm going to ask you, why did you want to challenge us and shock us so much? It's a very difficult watch.
Yeah, so I think on a subject like this, it's easier to brush it under the carpet. It's not. I think a lot of social media we see is just this thing that doesn't really matter. It's quite simple. It's very much throwaway. When you think of stuff that's posted, it comes and it goes. But for a certain generation, it isn't those things. We need to pay more attention. I think if you can't see the scars of what's happening, it's easy to dismiss them.
Yeah.
So it needs to be that sort of shock of what's going on. That's why we try and sort of keep the shocks coming right to the end. That it isn't all fine, because that's how it will be if it's ignored and not dealt with properly, and we don't speak to children and deal with the bullying online. Those problems will just continue, and that person will be damaged for the rest of their life until they deal with it. So it's important to get people's attention, basically.
And now that you say this thing about it being more for adults to understand cyberbullying, because what struck me was I'm going to talk about this tonal shift that you manage in it, because I didn't see this coming at all when I was watching. I didn't know how the trapdoor was going to fall out. So in a way, it does feel like it's kind of a lighthearted, like, oh, aren't we silly? The way that we let this permeate our self-image, but then it's like, no, it's actually this nasty.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very effective.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm very keen on horror films in general that don't give the game away early on. Most of the best horror films, in my opinion, the ones that I like, is there's not a huge amount of horror in features, especially for the first 60 minutes.
Yeah.
You're building up to something. There's plenty going on, but if you give too much away at the beginning, or you try and shock people too early, you need to build them up to it. You need to almost put them at ease in a certain way. So and then hit them with something. There's a common trend now, especially in feature horrors, where you've got to get like a bloody scene in the first minute,
so that people understand you're going to go in that direction later. Yeah.
Or it's almost as well. People could easily switch off. I think that's their worry.
Yeah.
There's not enough blood in the first 5 minutes. But if you build someone into it, the shock is far greater.
Yeah, although we have a disagreement in the team about that, because me and the producer Joanna thought that it was a bit eerie as it began. I mean, I didn't feel that it was your classic family. There was a chilling, unsettling atmosphere over there in the table, and it's very ambiguous. The stance of the parents, we talked a lot about that. We don't know if they're helpful to her, if they're loving, or if they're not loving, and it's an unwelcoming environment. It's quite ambiguous in the film, isn't it? Because they care. They make a birthday cake in the end, but it's weird.
Yeah, that's intentional, because the parents are key, really, because they, I suppose, without going into, we can go into too much detail with the parents, but they don't understand what's going on with her. She's in her room. She's not her same when she comes back downstairs. She's a bit off with everyone. The mother is clearly annoyed with her. it's just a lack of understanding. They do care, they just don't understand.
Yeah,
is what we're going to get across.
Yeah.
Which is common in this sort of situation.
Wow, very good chatting with you, Stephen. Thanks so much for letting us show the film.
Thank you for sharing it.
Fantastic work. You've got your Aura Films UK. We've got up there on the Instagram. People want to get to know Stephen a bit more. But yeah, we got to let you go. Thank you so much for coming on, and all the best, and keep up the good work. And we'll keep those buckets on heads. Nice one, Stephen. Cheers.
Yeah.